We're delighted that you are joining us on Zoom for our 11th business briefing. The purpose of these briefings are to help local businesses, nonprofits, and arts organizations navigate through our new economic reality. I'm pleased today to be joined by two outstanding leaders of Montgomery County, Carmen Larsen, who's the chair of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Janice Freeman, the CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce. Our guests will discuss how minority-owned local businesses are navigating the gradual reopening of the county's economy, which is currently in phase 2. They will take questions from our Zoom audience. Please send your questions to the chat box on the right of your screen. And as we start, I would like to once again thank Susan Kennedy, who has done a marvelous job of moderating all of our briefings. And I know she will do that as well today. Susan, let us please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. Thank you very much for being with us today, everybody, for our, as the president mentioned, our 11th business briefing. They've all been quite enlightening and very educational. And so our first question today, and I'm going to ask both ladies to please give us some feedback, and I'll start with Carmen. Talk a little bit about what you are hearing from your members as a result of this COVID epidemic. What is happening with those businesses out there, and what is their greatest need at this time?
Well, thank you, Susan. The Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Montgomery County, has been busy talking to many of our members and not necessarily members, our constituents in the county that are having a hard time. So there are different groups with different industries having slightly different kinds of needs, but overall, everybody has been impacted significantly, that's for sure. And it also has been awakening for people whose business didn't necessarily depend a lot on technology, that they knew that using technology was going to be helpful, to suddenly it's not just helpful, but it's absolutely necessary. So definitely we've had a very strong hit, which I think we're going to feel in the economy. And even though we've been very lucky to have a lot of help from the federal, state, and local, the county has done a terrific job in supporting our small businesses, but it's unfortunately not enough time. So that's my take on it.
Okay, thank you. Janice, tell us what you're hearing out there in the community from your business members.
I am hearing similar things. Most of it varies, but I will say that a number of people, in the beginning, it was just a shock, what's happening and what are you going to do and where do you go from here? And then when you found out a number of them, they couldn't work or they couldn't open their businesses. And so, what do we do? Some of them are working, trying to get grants. Some have been able, but some others have not. I have heard from people who are having problems just staying in, even though they may be remote, they still have a business place. And so they're having to try to deal with the landlord. And even though we've gotten these messages that certain things are supposed to happen as far as the landlords working with you, some of them are not working with the tenants. So the tenants become a little upset and unnerved because they want to be at their business place. And so I'm working with that. Some of the tenants businesses that I'm working with are having, some of the people are a little not feeling safe about coming back. So we're having to work on that to make sure that you do all the things that you're supposed to do. And the other thing that I'm hearing, those that are coming back and the businesses are open partially, they really aren't making enough money to maintain the businesses. So in a long run, I don't know in some of those cases just how that's going to pan out, because they're cut back so much.
Well, and we've seen that as well. I mean, in the county in general, the exact topics you're talking about. In many cases, a landlord, and they have to protect their interests too. They have to pay a mortgage. I mean, it's not like they don't have expenses as well. But if they could, I mean, the courts have been closed and whatnot, but if they got that tenant out of there's not anybody standing in line necessarily to lease it. So it's a false economy on that. And when you lease a building, you have to rehab it, you have to paint it, you have to do whatever is necessary. So there's an expense involved with that. And many times you get free rent to attract a tenant. So in many cases, it's to everyone's benefit to sit down and say, look, nobody's happy here, but we got to work together. And of course, certain industries have been harder hit than others. But I mean, everybody's been hit, but certain industries have been harder hit than others. And because of both of the chambers, you deal with a variety of businesses. Do you know of any business that has actually, not that I would say have done well because of this crisis, but has there been businesses that have done okay because of the crisis?
I've had a few that's done okay. I have a few that didn't really shut down. They cut back, but they didn't really shut down. So they are doing okay. One person I talked to a couple of days ago I think they had 2 locations. They opened one. And so they're hoping that they'll be able to open another one So those that have contracts, those are the ones that they can work remote and they're still doing what they need to do to satisfy the contract. But a lot of the people I work with aren't on those contracts.
Right.
We have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in the in our purview, where we've been talking to the businesses, there are a few, and I would say it's a smaller percentage that have done well, and it's usually the ones that were already positioned to do business over the internet, had subscribed to Amazon, or were doing sales over the internet. If they were already positioned, they seem to be doing very well. Now there have been some that are kicking in to start their own businesses now, and we've seen that those are people who are in the accounting area. I had just recently somebody we'd been working with for 2 years that kicked off their business in bookkeeping. All of a sudden, he's finding people reaching out to him more to help out with accounting for the loans. But most of the ones that are doing very well are the ones who are already positioned to do business over the internet. I want to talk about a little bit some of the questions, Susan, that you had. You said there was a question about how many members. So our chamber, really, we're serving the community regardless of how many members have paid or not paid. We have a membership of paid members that are roughly around 200, okay? But, we have a foundation that we work with. So we're the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Montgomery County. We have a 501c3 foundation, and we do a lot of community outreach. So we're not just serving members, we're serving members and anyone who comes and knocks on our door. We've put our name on the volunteer list for the council to let people know that they can come over and join us. We serve people who are not members or not members yet. Hopefully one day will become members. But I would say that we get roughly, I think on a daily basis, we probably get 5 or 6 calls. There are of the 5 or 6 calls, probably 3 out of the 5 are non-members but need help, and we go ahead and help them out. So that was for the membership question. I don't know how you want to address that, Janice.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Similarly, I'm around that area of numbers, but most of the people that I end up getting calls from are not members. Right. If I do workshops, and that's where I meet people, or if I'm out and people ask questions about something, I happen to answer it and someone else hears, they may call. But I get people from outside of this Montgomery County area, Virginia, and I don't know how but I do. So, but I work with anyone who calls and has, has a question that I'm able to support.
Right.
Yeah.
And then of the people who are, the people who are members, how many people are impacted? I don't know. I'm not sure that that's a really great question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It changes all the time, I'm sure. So what can folks do to help these local businesses? These are questions coming from Kate Ryan at WTOP. What can local residents do to help these businesses that are struggling right now?
I think use their services and products is the main thing. I think we love the fact that there's assistance at the federal, state, and local level. But I think that while we are grateful of that, our main focus as businesses should be, how do we get additional businesses? How do we grow our business? How do we get people to know that we do good work or that we provide a good product or service? And I think what the community can do is to promote the use of local businesses, whether it's a service industry or a food industry or retail or any of those. I think it's just a matter of promoting the businesses that are in your community and using their product, choosing to use their products or services and letting them know that you're there for them. I think that's the best way I can think of.
That's pretty much. I with a few people, the pivoting. There are some people, I had this woman call, she was not a member. She had a dance school and she called and she was all upset about not knowing what to do. Well, I don't have a dance school, but I had just saw or heard someplace that go online, Zoom. I mean, you can do similar things by using Zoom. And she tried that. And I don't know where she is as far as the capacity that she had, but she said no one was coming. And this is in the very early stages, 3 months ago?
Yeah.
Whenever it started.
Yeah, so a lot of folks are just looking for advice and learning how to think outside of the box, I think, through this whole thing.
And know-how. So a lot of people, like Susan, Carmen was saying, if you're not a techie, if you haven't been using technology, even if you think outside, you might not know how to follow through.
Well, and even if you do know how, it changes. I mean, I live on Zoom every day, but then you have something freezes, I mean, there's always an issue with technology. And so there's always that problem. And the other thing I want to touch on is, and you're absolutely right, of course, that businesses need business. I mean, but the government and really the federal, state, and local have all tried to do grants. There's never nearly enough money, but grants and the federal government, I mean, we all have some issues when we talk about the federal government, but they did provide substantial sums to Montgomery County and other areas to be able to help people for this crisis, for the CARES money. They sent $183 million to Montgomery County, and hopefully they'll see their way to send some more, because we certainly have spent it. But the grants really is almost just this way of a bridge loan. A grant is what we are using to keep somebody in business until they can really get back in business.
Exactly.
And that's, I mean, some of these seminars, briefings that we've had nonprofits and arts groups, and they're thinking and looking at whether or not they can come back with a third of the audience, because they have to have the social distancing, and everybody wants everybody to be safe. They have to be safe. But if you could exist off a third of your gate, off a third of your audience, you didn't need help before. I mean, because I mean 2/3 were making you money. Well, that wasn't the case with them either. I mean, so it's a very tough situation.
It is tough. And one other thing that we haven't talked about is ties in. I'm actually getting calls from people who we talked about the commercial side, but there are people on the residential side, and they're having problems paying mortgage. And so I called today to talk about this money that the governor has. There's on the 20th. So there are a number of state cities but Montgomery County isn't listed. And I called and they said, well, don't worry, it will be. But I found out that that's only for landlords that have multifamily housing and that you've gotten money from them. So if you haven't gotten money from them, it's just not clear, and it's not going to help you. But there's another loan that she talked about is for renters, that they have to understand and clearly know how to write a hardship letter to let them know why they need the funds. So there's a lot of know-how that people don't know.
So do you provide that assistance, Janice? Do you help them work through that process and get that letter written?
Well, I can. Yeah, I can.
That's the type of assistance that you can provide as a chamber to these folks who are struggling.
Let me just say that the county council, along with the county executive, are coming up with $20 million for rental assistance. That should be next week that passes. I should never predict anything that we do, but I can predict that's going to be a 9-0. Everybody. And excuse me.
Is that for anyone? Do you have?
Well, there again, there's some limitations. I mean, it's not like, but it's Montgomery County's money, that the CARES money that Montgomery County, it would be just for Montgomery County residents. Right. And as I say, there's got to be some limitations and how much it'll be, and the county executive side will be the ones to actually get the money to the people, hopefully as quickly as they can. But we know that if we don't do something, we're going to have all sorts of people lose their homes and or rent, can't rent their homes.
That's right.
And therefore you have a homeless population, and it's a snowball effect that's going to be devastating to our community. So you're much better off spending $20 million up front, keeping people as safe as they in the same place that they are living as best we all can, than to have any of the other problems.
Right. So I wanted to get back, if I may, and I'm definitely on the Affordable Housing Commission, but anyhow, because I think it's important. But I want to get back to business, if you don't mind.
Sure,
and what I would like to suggest is that it's important, I think, for our businesses to know that they can move forward and that they have a way to move forward. And they're not going to be able to do it very easily without a bigger investment in technology. And for that, I think, what can you and the local government do to help that? And I think it's to have programs. I know we're all kind of sort of knee-jerk reaction, emergency, but I think we need to take a look at a longer term investment in infrastructure and technology, the ability for people to come up to speed faster in technology. And I think this is going to be impacting not just businesses, but also the educational system and the ability for people to gain skills, because people are going to have better skills in technology as well. So what can the county do? What can the state do? I think it's investing smartly in technology. We need bigger broadband capacity, so that you don't have those times where your Zoom freezes. You need to be able to download files better, because now you're not going to be able to exchange documents as easily. The whole issue of 5G needs to be considered. I know there's this whole China deal and all that stuff, but I think we need to see how we can move better to 5G technology. Our chamber is very serious about taking a hard look at that, and we have a group that's looking specifically to that. Being able to have people have internet. Many people can't afford to have internet at home. Maybe there has to be some kind of a public program to make sure that the citizens of this county have more affordable access to internet, because of the ones who are not capable of sustaining that thing. So there has to be some program to make sure that everybody has access to internet and can at an affordable rate, and not just any, because I know the internet companies sell you a plan, and it's just so very limited. So if you have school kids and are getting on the internet, they can't operate with that. So the minimum plan on internet is not sufficient now. It has to be a little bit higher, and that costs more money. So I think that if I were to say what can get us back on our feet better, is better infrastructure, better telecommunications infrastructure, better access to both broadband and cellular throughout the county, and bigger capacities. I think long are the days, we saw not too long ago, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, where at the county council we were saying, well, who needs to download the movies? Is that just what you want? No, now it's for real. Now it's really, we need this. We need to have better technology to not just have Zooms, but have more active. So that's technologies that's out there, but we're not using it. Zoom is easy. We can just go and get it, and it's kind of affordable, but it's not sufficient. So you can't grab people as a business. You can't grab people's attention for very long on a Zoom because people get tired. So we have to use better 3D technologies or interactive technologies to reduce the lag time, even for the theaters and the performing arts. One of the things they're hurt with is the lag time in the communication. So Adventure Theater was suggesting to me, how can we get the right technology so that you can have, and this was a good example, a choir singing from different pieces of geography in the county, and have it be a
well, thank you. You've touched on many topics there. So let me, I couldn't write down every one of them, but let me just say that the county council early on, and it was because of Councilmember Andrew Friedson, who was truly the leader on this, we did a teleworking grant of, I think it was up to $2,500 for a business that needed the technology that they could telework. So, so that in itself was something that we've done. And of course, we've done many other grants as well for various industries. Part of what we need to be doing is the education side itself, and you can never do enough education. I don't care what the topic is, but Montgomery County Public Schools is certainly working on that, and as well as the literally the jewel of Montgomery County, Montgomery College. They have programs and for people in a variety of ways on 3 campuses to help with that. We talk about the 5G. The 5G is an interesting situation. It's in the commercial areas, and that's been no problem for the poles. It's where there is underground utilities in the newer parts of housing on the residential side, and that's caused a discussion. And in many cases, the industry itself changes I always say every 15 minutes. That's not fair, but they'll say, well, in the beginning, we don't need a taller tower, but we need it every 600 feet or 300 feet. And of course, the base of it is larger than in other areas. At one time, there was a noise factor. There's all of these different issues that we need to work through. The FCC has not been the greatest friend with us on that as well. They want to push something through by a 3-2 vote. And so therefore, whenever you have that, you're not getting the best situation to start with. So we're continuing to work on that. We realize that we need to work on that. And of course, internet in itself is an interesting issue. Montgomery County has franchises for the television side, for the cable side. And of course, all the cable people, whether it be Comcast, which I think is now Xfinity, or whether it be Verizon, which is now Fios, they have franchises for the television side, the cable, but they're also internet providers. And of course, in many cases, the internet provider is really taking over for the cable TV side of it. So we have to continue to work with that. So we need to work together. We will work together. These are not easy. They weren't easy before we had COVID. They certainly have not gotten easier because of COVID. And so we need to continue to do that. Go ahead, please. I'm interrupting.
Yeah, we're winding down here already. As I said, this goes very quickly, and we still have some questions out there in the field that we'd like some brief answers to if we can. First of all, I'm assuming that each of you has a website where folks can go to and find out about these businesses that you say need our support. We can go to your website, your particular chamber website, and see all those businesses who are members. Is that correct?
And mine is at a point of being worked on, so they would have to send me something.
Okay, and then also let's get back to the question on Carmen. She's putting
that's high tech. That's high tech.
Perfect. That's perfect. You mentioned the schools, Carmen, and we did just get this notification this week about the schools doing the remote learning for the first entire semester until next year. Both ladies, briefly, how are your small business owners going to be coping with this? Has there been any concerns coming from them? Any advice that you're offering?
I think, well, for me, it has been some. I don't know about Carmen. I think that it's mixed emotions. They're happy in the sense that they don't know how safe it is to send their kids to school. But being at home, they've got to work out the other side of it. If you're employed, then you've got to work out how you're going to be able to school them at home, and then how you're going to have income. So that's something that that's what I'm hearing mostly. I don't know, Carmen, you have comments?
Yeah, so it's very true. I mean, that's very similar. I think what we've heard is that they anticipated that it would still be online for the fall. I think we all knew that it wasn't going to be this easy walkout, and now we're all back to where we were. I think that also it highlights the importance of schools to come up with a better online system for younger people, because their attention span is going to be shorter. Mm-hmm. And I think that people who are working are going to have a really hard time, because they still have to watch those kids. It's not like you put them in front of a computer and suddenly they're fine. And young people, let's face it, we're human beings after all, right? So those young people, they want to go out and move and interact and things like that. And while interaction is okay by a Zoom meeting or a classroom, a Blackboard meeting or whatever, it's not enough. There has to be that physical piece of it. So the parents are having to compensate for that physical piece of it, mm-hmm. and interact with the kids and do things. And that takes away from their ability to do serious work at home.
I heard last evening, and I don't know which, might have been a webinar, there are a whole community of people that have been schooling their children at home already. That's what they do. And someone was talking about how you really need to kind of understand what they've been doing to how maybe it can make it a little easier for you. I don't know how you put these two communities together, but we do have that community that has been very successful.
Yes. And the thing is, homeschooling requires that one of the parents is focused on homeschooling and the other one is focused on work. And we have households where there's only one parent. And so I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be a big challenge. Do both of your organizations get information out on social media as well? Twitter, Instagram, do both of you have those types of social media accounts?
Yes, we have both LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. We're not using it as effectively as we should have before, and now we're saying, oh, we better get back on this. But we have the accounts out there, and now we have to look for somebody to full-time manage that, which is an additional expense.
That's where my problem was.
Yeah.
I'm AACCMC.com, so I have it, but you have to have someone that's really like Carmen said.
Yes.
Manage it. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Another helpful graphic. Homemade graphic, we like that. Well, we're just about out of time, and I want to thank the ladies for being here. Mr. Katz, this is our last business briefing until September. We're taking a
Yes.
little bit of a recess.
Yep.
And there was one more question that maybe you can answer before we close out about where people can find the information about these grants and programs. I know MCEDC has a lot of that information on their website. We have it on the county website.
Yes.
Any other places where we can
Well,
find that information?
SBA, I wanted to mention this, SBA and the governor's office, and I'm just going to mention this without going, the PPP grant that
Yeah.
a lot of people were not able to successfully get, they have $130 million out there. So I would just suggest that they try to go back, but they have to find a bank that's going to support it
Right.
and find out how to work it, but it's there.
Okay.
Well, and of course, it sounds $130 million sounds like a lot of money until you're talking about spending it and how fast it goes. I mean, you're
Right.
talking about a whole state. I mean, it doesn't last long. But to answer your question, Susan, if they can't find the information in the other websites that you're looking at, once they Google it and you know everybody's throwing their hands up, just contact my office and we'll sort through it and give you the best information that we can try to link you up with. So, I mean, that we stand ready to do that. And I know that we're out of time. Thank you, ladies, very, very much for being here. And we always say this half an hour goes pretty fast, and it sure does. It went in a hurry, but thank you both. And I obviously want to thank Susan for her help as always on these events. But I wanted to take a half a second and thank people from my office, Lori Edberg, who puts these together, Kevin Mack, who puts these together, Lisa Mandel-Trupp, who's my chief of staff. They do a lot of work every day, and I sincerely appreciate it. And I don't always remember to say thank you publicly too. So I thank you all for everything you're doing for all of us, and especially Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. Tune in September. We'll be back.
Yeah,
Okay,
right. See you in
thank you.
September. There you go.
Thank you very much.